Hello and welcome to What We're Watching. It's Catherine.
And Liz.
And Ed. And John.
So I want to start with, and I believe you're watching this too, Liz, Bridgerton Season 3. Now, technically, it's only the first drop, as they say. So it's 4 episodes of the 8 episodes. And then we got to wait for that. Why are they doing that? It's like they're torturing.
I don't know.
They're making some kind of a bridge between the two parts.
Stop. Because I will say last night I discovered that as I was like, one more. Number 5. What? Nope.
One more. No, sorry.
Because that's very bingeable.
Yeah, and I think it's actually really smart that they're breaking it up because if you binge, well, I'm not saying I like it.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's smart of them to do because otherwise we all just like rush through it and then it's over. So this forces us to stop and really think about it.
For a month.
I know.
For
it's kind
a
of long.
month.
They did this with Stranger Things too. That was the first time I remember that they broke the season in half.
Yeah, because they're realizing Hulu's format on some of their big shows like Handmaid's Tale and certain things where it's old school like water cooler, week to week, stand around, talk about
Yeah, you can't actually have a conversation because it's still going.
Right. So whereas Netflix was dropping everything at the same time, people were binging it within 24 hours. And they're basing their algorithm off of that, whether you watch it all the way through, where you're paused, you're stopped. So I do appreciate it for that regard, where it's like a little more old school. It's a little more like appreciating the artist put all this time in, and it's not so digestible and discardable.
Right, that you just devour it and then it's over.
A lot of D's. Devour it, digest it, discard it, hashtag. I went back and watched the last episode of Bridgerton to say, okay, where did it end off so I know?
Oh, okay.
But I forgot that I did that. So when I picked it back up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm already halfway through the first episode, season 3. No. And I was like, wait, why is Sharma she's still just getting recovered from that horse riding accident? And I didn't like clean that up or finish it up at the end of last season. And I'm like, oh, I did one of those things where I fell asleep, turned off my computer.
Oh.
So now, yes, I'm basically done with the first drop of it.
Yeah, it ends with not a cliffhanger at all. We know who's going to be together. Are you guys watching it? Are you interested at all? Do you care if there's spoilers?
Someday.
Oh, no. Well, then, no, it doesn't count. Okay. No, because this is 3 seasons in. It's about the Bridgerton family. It's very beautifully shot. Now, I will say it's almost getting a little too saccharine for me. It's almost a little too... I mean, the flowers at some of these balls...
It's a bit much.
You are like, holy Toledo. Some of the dresses are so alarmingly over the top. The wigs on the queen this time...
They're going big. They're going real big.
A TikTok on how they created this one wig where, it was almost like a picture within a huge wig. It was so fantastic.
It was like a moving diorama inside the wig and a light and like it was craziness.
It sounds like the B-52s.
More.
It's so much bigger, Ed.
Her poor neck, the actress. I mean, yikers. I mean, they must have something that like holds up some of the weight in long scenes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. So we start this season off with, Whistle Down, the gossiper, my dear gentle readers, the Dame Julie Andrews.
Oh, she's astonishingly wonderful. Yeah.
It's really about this gossip columnist who, for the last 2 previous seasons, has always sort of reported scandalously on the social season and the debutantes and the coming out and the who's who and who's dating and all this and that.
Which is why it kind of made sense that it changed from season to season, that there's a new thing to follow. So it's not the exact same characters. Okay.
It's centered around one family primarily.
It's definitely the main family that you're following, and sort of each season is going to have a love story. It's based on a book series. Each sibling of the family got their own book. So I think there's 8 siblings.
Just like us.
Dink, because we are 8 siblings in our family. In the first one, we did not the oldest, because the oldest was the second season.
And the first one was so hot.
The first
sexually,
one was
boys. Sexually. But I will say that is like kind of... I mean, it's.
I feel like they've dialed it up a bit.
You think up? I think down.
I think this season they went up a bit. No, well, okay,
I don't know.
all right. Well,
maybe because the guy in the first season was so hot.
oh, he was super hot. Yeah,
That was the difference.
Reggae Jean Page.
Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Ooh, he
maybe
was.
that's why. And also, just a little cliff note. This was Shonda Rhimes, like, sort of first dip into producing at Netflix. I think it's Shondaland.
It is Shondaland for
Yeah,
sure.
so I feel like this was one of her first deals when she said, I'm going to break off from ABC and maybe start doing this deal at Netflix.
I mean, still
and it was
doing
a
her- yeah,
huge
yeah.
hit. I
Obviously-
can't get into Grey's Anatomy.
No, I'm not. I was just going
Oh,
to say,
my
obviously,
God,
still
driving me-
doing Grey's Anatomy on ABC, but this also.
That is debatable if that still should be happening. We're not going to talk about that now.
All right, so here are my main thoughts.
Okay.
So the couple that we're focusing on this season, which is Colin and Penelope. Yes. They had been kind of like on the fringes of she totally really liked him.
It's a hard crush.
Right. Hard crush. And he was definitely like friend
Unrequited.
zone. Yeah. I mean, completely unrequited. And she was trying to get over it. Meanwhile, spoiler, she is Lady Whistledown. So she's writing all this gossip stuff. And she's the,
She's kind of a spiteful jerk. You want to root for her, but it's like anytime anything happens to her, and especially this season with like Colin or, she feels slighted, the pen can be wicked. She'll go back and in tears and just write out and the next day be like, oh, what did I do? What did I do? I can't stop it. No, you jerk. I mean, so it's like you can't root for her and you kind of are supposed to root for her, but it's like she's sort of a jerk.
Well, she's sabotaging herself. I mean, that's the bigger problem.
Throw
yeah.
myself on the bed and toss and turn. Oh, what did I do? I mean, you're like, ugh. But Colin comes back from like traveling abroad.
Which was only like a couple months, and he's like all of a sudden like
Changed.
super stud. You're like, okay.
Like super change.
I just have to say, there were two like brothel-esque scenes that were like, are we Game of Thrones? Like, what is happening?
Yeah, he had to have multiple lovers.
Yeah, and he was totally like handling it. So I guess we were supposed to be like, now he knows
But there's
what's
a
up.
level of him that is cheesy in this.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying is the main couple this season, you're like, I'm not sure if I'm 100%. I'm not getting turned on by you two. I'm not.
But I do want them to work out and be happy. And no, you don't care.
How that is a fantasy if they end up together.
I mean, they're going to.
I know,
So.
but that is a real.
Well,
that he
here-
finally
yeah.
sees her for who she is. But he has said numerous times, if I ever find out who Whistledown is,
Lady Whistledown.
I will destroy her. She's
Yeah.
the most
I
evil,
mean-
cruel person. And Penelope's like all fraud. Like, oh no. Like, you're like, it's you jerk. It's you.
She's in trouble. Yeah, so that's the
You in trouble,
cliffhanger.
girl.
Yeah, that's the cliffhanger of at the end of these 4 episodes. We know they're together because they had some like
Chemistry,
some like
finally.
super hot time in the carriage. Woo! And then afterwards, he was like, "We're gonna get married."
If the carriage is rocking.
Yeah, if the carriage is rocking, don't come a knocking.
Yes.
I think
So
it's always rocking, but sure.
Oh, jeez.
in this case, it was because it was on the move.
Mm-hmm.
So this was just happening while they were headed home. So yeah, they ended it with a teaser for the next 4 episodes. And you realize like, oh yeah, she's Lady Whistledown. So this is a real problem. So even though they're fine romantically, we've got this big problem hanging over our heads. And her best friend, which is her ex best friend, which is the sister, she knows, and she's like, if you don't tell him,
Eloise.
I'm gonna tell him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to look forward to. I will say the 2 actresses who play Penn's sisters are fantastic.
Did they just?
It's Cinderella.
It's Cinderella. And one of the sisters, her dad is from Downton Abbey, and her
Yes.
mom is from Harry Potter.
Dolores Umbridge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's great. But yes, I mean, if you weren't inspired by the evil stepsisters of Cinderella, I mean, that's what they are.
I mean, it's such a
and
parallel.
their costumes are
Yeah.
almost identical.
For sure. I mean, also, the mom is like, she's not a stepmother, but she's real, like the wicked
Yes.
stepmother style. But it's funny because I feel like those 3 characters and now the 2 sisters now have like husbands. They're doing a comedy.
Yeah.
That whole group, they're doing a different show.
Yes.
And it's hilarious and I'm really enjoying it, but it's like, oh,
It
we've
does
got this.
not match tone.
No, it's extremely romantic and like a lot of deep breathing. And then the other people are doing, like, this other group is just like doing slapstick, goofy, hilarious. I mean, the whole thing of
Okay, so you have a little like Benny Hill matched with like their Royal Academy of like, you just have such a weird tone match sometimes in these scenes. Because like Mrs. Bridgerton, the Viscountess, the original, she's going to be pushed out. But she's always so serious about her children.
Oh, she just wants a
And
love
thinking
match
about
for them.
you need
Just
to
a love
find
match.
love. Wouldn't you give love a chance if it came
A love
knocking on your
match.
door? No, mother, I'm not going to. I mean, some of these speeches are like, because there's multiple layers of family members and trickling off other people. I mean, there's a lot to follow.
Yeah, because I would say the daughter Francesca, that's a really interesting storyline.
Yeah.
And people are noticing that there's a little bit of a neurodivergent quality to her because she really doesn't like to be around crowds. She only wants to play the piano. She's not really interested in the guy who's trying to woo her. She
she's
became
missing the
interested.
connections.
Yeah, she is interested in the guy who's very quiet and he's a little bit neurodivergent feeling. It's really interesting. So they're doing some purposeful things that I was like, oh, I like what they're doing with this character.
And Queen Charlotte's killing it as usual.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the costumes, the sets, like I said, they've gotten really kind of over the top. The budgets it must be insane, but they are gorgeous. You really are like, how are they even doing this? Because they're not CGI. I mean, they are.
No, they've built
They're
stuff.
gorgeous.
They're at actual locations, it looks
Yeah,
like.
so it's just as enjoyable as ever, especially if you've already watched it.
Well, and the flower budget must just be out of control.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Some of the bows. So, yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's enjoyable, but because the main couple this season is Penelope and Colin, it's
I'm
not as
enjoying
hot.
them, yeah.
It's not as hot, and I'm not rooting for them like I had maybe in the past.
Wow, rude. I'm rooting for them. Come on, Liz. What about that guy that she almost was with? That then finally Colin was like, no, you can't be with that vegetarian guy.
Oh, God.
Actually, he didn't care that he was a vegetarian. That was very funny where people were like, what's with this weirdo who doesn't eat anything but vegetables?
Oh, gosh. Like, I mean, Penn, if there's any chance with Colin, was going to go for it. So it doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, she had to.
Well, I like that they also gave her a complete makeover this season. They changed her hair. They changed her dresses. There's still a lot of boobs.
More Parisian.
Yeah, there's still a lot
the
of
boobs
cleavage.
are literally pushed up. I don't even know if my boobs could do that. Like, they are in your throat, basically.
Well, yeah. I did hear something interesting about the costuming that period-wise, it's not historically accurate. They did stick with what they consider, although some characters this does not apply, the silhouette is what they would consider historically accurate, but then none of the fabrics really are or the colors are. So they're just kind of doing their own, which is fine. The whole thing is a fantasy.
Yeah.
So they should be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, because they don't get into really anything historically that's going on in England or anything that's happening at the time. No political.
Wait, is this going to turn out to be Lost? And they're like all dreaming on a beach somewhere after a plane crash?
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
That'd be fantastic. Bridgerton on Netflix, season 3. Part
3.
1 drop.
Yeah, part 1, part 2. When is it coming? Like
June. We have like a month.
Yeah.
It's like mid-June where it drops. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing I'm going to talk about, also on Netflix, is the movie Anyone But You.
Oh, so was it in the movie theater first?
Yes, it was in the movie theater. It did really, really well.
Oh.
I didn't see it in the movie theater, but I was very aware of it.
It had a lot of buzz.
Yeah. So it's Sydney Sweeney, who is from Euphoria and also the first season of White Lotus. And then Glenn Powell, who...
Everybody thought they were actually like married or a couple.
They're not,
No.
as far as I know. I mean, they haven't called me
No,
about
she's like
it.
engaged to somebody, I think. No, they're not together.
So Glenn Powell, very handsome. He was recently in Top Gun and another flying movie and just a bunch of stuff. What, John?
I believe it was Devotion, but then
Devotion,
he has the
yeah.
upcoming summer movie, The Hitman.
Oh, yes. Which actually I'm very excited about The Hitman because he's playing a bunch of different characters or putting on different characters to be undercover. Anyway, it looks very amusing. So this was kind of tropey in the like, okay, we're going to pretend date because my parents are annoyed with me and I'm trying to throw them off track or whatever. And he's got an ex there. They're at a remote location wedding. It was in Australia and half the cast was Australian. So I wonder if there was some kind of like tax breaks or
There
something.
was, yeah, probably.
Yeah, so they were like, well, let's just go have a half Australian movie. Perfect.
I mean, that just like how you define the movie or the narrative, I mean, has been done like so many times.
Yeah, they did some big comedic moments. Some of them worked. Some of them,
Physical?
yeah,
Okay.
did not work as well.
People falling?
A lot of people
Tripping?
Well, and ripping off clothes and naked.
And they're so unattractive to
I
be all
was
of a
going to say,
sudden naked.
almost everyone in this movie is like in incredible shape. I was like, wow, the
Rip
casting.
my clothes off of
the
me.
casting of this was just a lot of very attractive people.
And that's how a movie can get made sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we've heard the story 100 times, but we have a new attractive cast willing to do it? Sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the much more dialed up version of a Hallmark movie, but also like bigger stakes. So you know how there's that thing where you overhear something and it causes like a problem? Yeah. That happens multiple times, and then it actually becomes almost like a running joke that they are like, well, now we're going to use overhearing to try and fix something.
Oh, Lord.
And that part of it kind of worked, but the beginning was just like the straight, I overheard something that I shouldn't have heard and now I've misunderstood or whatever, and then everything falls apart and now we hate each other. You're like, okay, sure. So I did sort of like it, and if you like romantic comedies,
John,
Yes, hi.
have you
what?
seen this?
I have seen it.
I knew it. He loves romantic comedies.
yeah, he does. Okay, so what were your
John's
thoughts about it?
genre.
Well, I mean, you're selling it in a totally different way. Well, you're not selling it.
Yeah,
but,
I'm underselling it, I think.
Yeah, normally I think the walk away, when this was happening, during the winter and as it continued to hit you through like Valentine's Day was like, it's a hate romantic comedy. Oh. And then finally seeing it, I did not feel that. I was like, what? That's not what this was. So somewhere in between.
Interesting. What's the trope that it's like enemies to lovers, like that kind of thing? But the problem is that when they first meet, they really do have such a strong connection. And then it's just like a dumb thing that they misunderstand
Why are you fighting
each other.
it? Yeah.
Because, you need some reason for them to be mad at each other.
Friction.
And then, of course, the fake dating, like whenever that happens, it's always like,
I want to know,
awkward
has
and- yeah.
anybody known anybody in their lives ever to do the fake dating?
No.
I mean, I know a lot of people.
I've
been
seen
in
a
some weird,
lot of fake dating
You
movies.
guys.
No, I've never been on a fake date trying to cover for someone that. No. That's what's happening. I'm the person that they brought with them. No, but it's a great movie trope.
It's a great movie trope.
But now I'm like, what the hell is it based on? Did somebody do it once and we've all been suffering for it ever since?
Is it a Shakespearean thing that I'm forgetting?
For
that
sure,
one of
probably.
them is a fake dating?
I mean, because she sold it to you a little bit off in some ways, because it's like they're only doing it because they're at this, quote unquote destination wedding in this small group that includes his ex. So that's why it's and the parents. So it's not like they went on dates out in the city to fool random people.
No, but that's always the fake dating trope. It's we're at this event or at like on vacation or something with family/exes. That's
Or my
that is
boss
the
or
trope.
whatever.
Gotta hire someone to cover for me. I'm gonna lose my Canadian American citizenship. Come with me to my grandma's 90th birthday party.
I mean,
I know
Are you
exactly.
talking about?
The Proposal. Oh my God, it's the greatest movie ever.
It is a fun one, Ryan Reynolds with Sandra Bullock, but
It's the best.
And Betty White.
I mean,
Betty White.
Oh
Okay,
my God.
all right. So you mildly are recommending.
Yes.
But if
I
you like
think
a rom-com-
if you like a rom-com, it's totally fine.
Okay.
It's not the best one ever made, but it's totally watchable.
A lot of attractive people to look at.
Super attractive people, very pretty in Australia. Yeah, it's all right. Now I'm trying to I don't know.
Sometimes like that's the level that you want. You're like, I'm going to watch this while I'm scrolling my phone Or, I don't need
Yeah,
I
it
don't
wasn't
need to
super-
intently
yeah.
watch this like with such focus, because it's like you kind of know
It's
what's
not
going to
super
happen.
challenging
You didn't
mentally.
have to put the subtitles on to keep track of what they were saying.
I probably still would, Eddie.
Yeah, because some of the Australian accents get a bit thick.
There you
You're
go.
like, wait, what?
There
What'd
you
you
go.
just say? All right, so that was Anyone But You on the Netflix. Okay, the other thing that I'm watching, and John is watching it too, on Apple TV Plus, we are watching Dark Matter.
Oh, I heard about this. Okay.
It is really, really good. It's based on a book, which I did listen to the book a couple years ago. And I was very excited when I heard that it was being turned into a show. So it stars Joel Edgerton, Jennifer Connelly, Alice Braga, and Jimmy Simpson. It's another multiple universe situation.
Oh, no.
So, I mean, it's always like, you can have all sorts of things about multiple universes, but this specific one is that the main character is swapped into a different reality, which is just like, John, what was that one we watched? Constellation? Was that it?
Yes.
Yes.
On Apple as well.
On Apple as well. Okay, so in that one, they switch because they go up into space or whatever, and they don't really know what's going on at first. Now, the setup of this one is that this guy is a scientist, and he's created a box, like a chamber kind of, that can put a person into superposition, which is very fancy scientific talk for you can move around to different universes, but still, I don't know, something. It was supposed to do something with like Schrodinger's cat, which doesn't really make sense. I don't know. Anyway, so what?
It does make sense, although the series isn't over, so not everything is explained yet.
Well, that's true because it's still in progress. But
Yeah,
also,
Catherine.
I listened to the book, so I know a lot of it from the book, even though it was kind of a while ago. But,
Yeah. How much you remember?
Well, I'm trying not to spoil things for you, and my husband is watching it.
Okay.
So I'm not like blurting out like, well, I do know that this happens and this happens and this happens. So anyway, right now, the situation is that our main character has been forced back into a different reality. And the other guy has taken over his life because he basically was like,
No, that always happens.
I know. He was in this universe and created this box and then realized, like, I kind of don't like my life. And I think I want that version of my life. So I'm going to take, why he didn't even just kill his other version of himself. I don't know. But he didn't. So he sends the other guy back.
Big mistake.
Yeah. He sends.
Start eliminating.
You just like you got to pull the what was it? The Illusionist, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, no. There's just a glass box in the warehouse over there. Don't worry about that. I'm ordering 1,000 of them right now. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, is that The Illusionist or is that.
The Prestige?
Oh, I think it's The Prestige.
I can't keep those two
Which
magic
is a
movies separate.
fantastic movie.
Yeah, so that's Hugh Jackman, you don't want to be the one in the box.
Oh.
Guess what, buddy? You're always the one in the box. There's just another one of you.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
That's something else.
Oh, whoops. Okay, go on.
Anyway, so it's science-y and mystery and
Sci-fi.
yeah. It's interesting because watching with my husband, we're watching this guy who's like basically slid into his life, which is not his life. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's his life. Like, no. That is not her husband. That is a different her husband. He is bad.
You're not saying what your real problem with this, not your husband, is.
What?
What was the disagreement that you felt so strongly about, Catherine?
What? That they did it?
Yes.
That always happens.
Yeah, and here's the
What
thing.
happens in another parallel universe stays in another parallel universe.
is
Come on.
him.
Is it
It
cheating?
is not
Still
him.
him.
Is it
It is
cheating?
not him. It's not him. It's not him. And he knows it's not him because he's like
Does
studying.
she sense it's not him?
Not yet. Although she has said, like, you're acting really differently.
It's
I mean, I
starting-
like
You're a
it,
little
but
bit bigger.
no, that's not what she said. Ed!
In where? Whoa.
No, she's been
I
noticing
like
that
it,
that his attitude is kind of different, and that he's like all bum chicka wow, like more
Oh.
excited about her than
Cocky
he.
in a couple different ways.
And also like I noticed he's like spending money like
Why? It's not his money. What does he care?
I don't think this version of him has the kind of money that the old version of him did. So he's, I think, going to have a very hard time adjusting to the version that he has now taken over. Because he was like in charge of a company, essentially, before.
Well, he won the Pavia, which is
Yeah.
apparently like the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, so he was a big deal.
It's
And now
funny.
he's like just this dude. And I don't think he's going to like that.
Yeah, it's a weird mirror image thing where, so Joel is the main character. Joel Edgerton is playing the main character. And then Jimmy Simpson is playing his friend, who's also a scientist. So in one world, Jimmy wins the Pavia, like right when the series starts. In the other one, Joel has won it like a while ago. And he's the one that switches from like, this life was good, I guess, even though I'm, on the top of the world. I'm going to go to this other life where I have a family.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't
never
think he's gonna,
works out,
it's
these
the-
multi-universes.
I mean,
It's going to work out perfectly.
Yeah, it's so the grass is always greener. And I think he's going to go, oh, yeah, the grass is always greener. Oh, this grass kind of sucks. I don't like it as much. Now that I've been here and I've had the wife, because he has had the wife.
He's the same guy.
No.
Once
No.
you've had Jennifer Connelly, yeah, that's it, man. You can't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it's almost, she's the dividing line of these universes, way back when, they were post-college, but pre-grad school or whatever. It was a decision, she got pregnant, and in one universe, they stayed together. In the other universe,
They
which
did not.
also hasn't, the whole universe thing, or more than these two, hasn't been dealt with yet, Catherine. But anyway.
So did I spoil it?
No,
'Cause,
whatever.
yeah.
I mean, the last episode that came out, there was a weird, non-explained moment. So maybe
Well,
not.
and also in the season-long tease, they do say it's like 1,000 doors and every single one goes to a different one. How are we going to find your universe? So there is precedent for people to already have known this.
And the image art is many of the main character, not just two. So anyway, so she is the dividing line between these two and having this kid. So it makes sense that, in some ways he's like, well, I want to undo that one decision that, forked my whole life.
Yeah, so there's definitely right now two versions of him. One that took over the family life, and he is the bad one, in my opinion, obviously, because you can't be like coming in and taking over somebody else's life. What? No, get out of here. And then
Shayna, it happens.
The full seduction, what's wrong with that?
And I'm like, I know, Catherine.
That's terrible. And then the family man who is now in the scientist's life, and he's like out of sorts. He's like, what the F is going on? Where is my family? He was able to track down his wife, who is living a different life. They never got married. They are old exes, and that does not go great. And the son is not there. And he's like, what is happening? So he's definitely the one that we're supposed to be rooting for to get back to his life, and the bad guy out of there.
Sounds interesting.
It is really interesting. Okay, that's Apple TV Plus. All right, Liz, what else are you watching? So Bridgerton and what else?
Also on Netflix, I'm watching Bodkin.
Oh, I'm watching Bodkin. I'm not that far through it, though.
I immediately got drawn in because one of my favorites, Will Forte, is on it. So it's basically about a small, idyllic Irish village where...
Well, you know I love a small town.
Yep. Where three people disappeared way back during like a festival.
Right.
And Will Forte arrives with sort of an assistant Emmy. He's a podcaster, and he's had a little bit of fame. And this is his next sort of like...
Right, because he's in the true crime podcast.
But he's like, oh, really?
Well, does he have a full beard or a half beard?
It's a light beard. It's a light beard, I think. And he gets-
Andy? No.
oh, gosh.
God, that show is so good. That's Last Man on Earth. Oh
Yeah,
my God,
that
it
was
so good.
That might be one of my favorite like sitcoms in the last couple of years, and it ended. We need a movie. I mean, we were shorted on that for sure. It did not wrap it up in the way that really gave us all the answers.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll bet you they were planning for it. They were getting it going. And then the pandemic, and they're like, well, this is in bad taste. We shouldn't do this.
Oh, no.
I can't
Let's
remember.
hold off on this
I
for
think it was,
years,
yeah,
maybe.
I
No,
think it was
I don't know
way
if
before that.
it was before that, but it's so great.
I mean,
So-
basically, MacGruber. You already got it.
Oh, so good. Will Forte. Okay, so he basically teams up with Dove, an actress, gorgeous actress, Siobhan Cullen.
She's beautiful.
I didn't know her before. And she is a journalist and very begrudgingly is partnered with him.
Yeah,
but
she's extremely serious, where he is much more like...
He's a podcaster.
Yeah,
Let's keep it surfacey. Do we really need to solve this crime, or are we just going to live in the idyllic Irish world and get the little anecdotes and the cool characters?
Right, he wants the story time and the...
Yes.
Yeah.
He doesn't really want to hunt down a murderer.
Well, he was funny when he actually had that little speech where he breaks down what a podcast is. He's like, we don't want to solve this. We need the red herrings and we need the drama and we need the heart. He's like, what podcast do you listen to where they solve it? That's not the point.
That's why I don't listen to them.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Dove, the character, wants to solve it because
Yeah.
she's a journalistic reporter. And now if she's got like an angle and there's a true story there, she gets very excited.
I know. I love how she keeps sabotaging the audio. Like she's like, she just wants the information. He wants the actual recording. So she keeps like messing it up so then they can't get releases.
And by his befuddling way of, they're both following different trajectories.
Yeah.
And yet they both get very important information by doing
Yes.
that with their different ways. And in the background is just this fabulous Irish little town that makes you want to go sit in a pub and have a pint and watch these characters. And it's just beautifully done. It is produced by Michelle and Barack Obama, the Higher Ground production company.
Yes, I saw that.
They're doing great. And I think it's like, it's not based on anything true. It's totally made up. 7 episodes on Netflix. It's just kind of a delight. It also sort of has the slower small town pace. I mean, there are moments it picks up, but for the most part, it is like just an enjoyable watch. There's no big like, oh, dun, dun, dun. There's very few moments like that, but it's really because of the atmosphere and the environment that you're following and the characters. Seamus, some of these names, very Irish names in the pubs and their temperaments and the pissed off and the different layers of like, oh, it's this Irish gang that's coming after. And Sean, they hired this guy, Sean O'Shea.
Oh, their driver.
How that car's still operational after some of the things that happened to it.
Doesn't it get set on fire in the first episode?
And then he is never around when they need him.
No.
So
Where'd he go?
it's just very enjoyable. So I do recommend it on Netflix. All episodes are available, 7 episodes. I'm going to do 2 other quick shouts, not totally get into them. And they're not even shouts imply that I'm going to suggest that you watch them, which I'm like, actually, yeah, one I absolutely do. I'll start with the one I'm like, dear God. So it's on Netflix. It's called A Man in Full. Now, it's based off a Tom Wolfe novel, which Tom Wolfe, some of you would only know him from Bonfire of the Vanities, which starred Tom Hanks, and it was like universally panned, even though the book was hugely popular. This is close to it, I feel like.
Oh, no. Okay.
So you follow this mogul, Charlie Croker, played by Jeff Daniels, who is one of my favorite actors. So I was like, I'm all in. He has leveraged his empire up to the hilts to live this particular lifestyle, and the bank has come a-calling, and he is overdrafted, basically. And what does he have to do to try to save himself?
So like the $40 overdraft fee.
Yeah.
Add like a B behind it or something. Like it's a lot of money, and like he does not have it, right? And Tom Wolfe is notorious in his books, and the books are so famous because they're larger than life characters on the page. They're such full characters. In TV, they come off almost cartoonish. And I did think Jeff Daniels would be capable of like bringing some tone to it that was more realistic. There are some scenes and some parts of episodes that you are like, I don't know what anybody was thinking that this is like based in reality. Now, David E. Kelley was the one who basically brought it to the screen on Netflix. And Regina King, who I love, directed more than like half the episodes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Diane Lane plays his ex-wife, and it's a pivotal role. So it's all there. It's also just hard to watch because it shows the sort of the corruption of wealth and what it can do, and how by someone taking advantage at that level of the trickle down that impacts, it's when you're living on high leverage. So I don't know what to tell you. This is one of those ones you're like, it's a interesting one to digest. So A Man in Full on Netflix. What I do highly recommend is on Hulu. It is called Black Twitter, A People's History. You know, Twitter is now called X. It has a long history of being a platform that you could have a voice and highlighting marginal voices. And, you know, there's an element called Black Twitter. And it's so funny how they talk about it. It's all these people that had voices in the Black Twitter world talking about how the meme culture started, how Black Lives hashtag started. How
So this is a documentary.
It is fascinating on Hulu. It is so well done. It gives you the sort of history how certain things started and how there was empowerment and, you know, where they first maybe on MySpace started and when MySpace sort of imploded, like where'd they go? And Twitter in the early days, it was like, oh, let's go there. And then sometimes how it was weaponized against the community as well. And really the golden era was during Obama's era and how both advertisers and political parties realized that they could use both Black Twitter as sort of a launch point for whether it be candidates or social movements. It is truly fascinating to see what is like that perspective of Twitter and how it has evolved. So I highly recommend it. It is like both learning, cultural, enjoyable, humorous, break your heart at times. But it talks about like Arab Spring, how like certain things by being able to galvanize and polarized issues and bring people together in a very immediate, uncensored way, which had backlash and repercussions because of it as well. But how Black Twitter sort of launched that. And there's people are like, where is Black Twitter? Like, where does it exist? Is there a secret code word? Like, no, it's just like, it's like following certain people.
Right. It's just the group that you follow and are then a part of.
And then, yes, there are certain hashtags and like seeing the origin of it, like Oscar's so white. Like, it's just, there's so, and, you know, not all of them are political. There can be very other funny hashtags that happen. And it would start this, you know, what would then go viral, that would then go like what is now trending and how it's evolved to now owned by Elon Musk. And, you know, the gates are wide open for all types of speech, you know, including hate speech. And now it's not even called Twitter anymore. So I just think as a history of what is social media is fascinating. So Black Twitter, A People's History on Hulu.
I want to watch that. That sounds amazing.
It really is. There are just moments I'm like, oh my gosh. And then to figure out meme culture, the origin on some memes, because I've seen them and you're like, well, what was the root of that? And there was this one where this Black woman's kind of like leaned over and she's giving this look like this. And they've been used in all these contexts. And she goes, no, that was just me. Like my pants were too tight. I was really tired, like, and like what it's come, like, it's just knowing how things evolve or where, like, what is the genesis point? Like, where did it start? It's fascinating. It was fascinating.
The whole, it takes on its own life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. Yeah, I really want to watch that. Cool.
I highly recommend it.
All right, Ed, you're up.
There was no plan to connect these things, but I love connecting things.
Oh, you do, for sure.
Like knowing where things came from, but also source material coming from a book. I thoroughly enjoyed the most recent release of The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Oh.
What? Where is that? You mean a movie?
It was in the theater, and it's now available on Starz. And I'm probably the only one subscribing to Starz.
Starz?
Right now.
Yeah, I know. I kind of need Starz.
I check in every 2 months. I'm like, none of those shows and none of your new movies. Okay, I'll get
and
back
that's
to
the
you.
only place it's playing?
Currently, that's where it's streaming. That's the old school style of,
All right.
it's
One
being
platform's
licensed
got
to
it,
them,
and
they
yeah,
got it.
everybody else, too bad. Too bad, so sad.
Me personally, I went ahead and watched all of the previous Hunger Games prior to that. And there's only 4, and they're not crazy long, and this is a prequel, so they didn't really feed the narrative directly. But I had watched them a long time ago when they came out. It had been a while since I'd actually seen them currently, and knowing all of that going into this prequel, it made it that much more enjoyable because it wasn't like a prequel of the universe that they've created explicitly. It was set maybe 60 years earlier. Right. It's the Hunger Games 74 in the first one. Hunger Games 75, the Quarter Quell in the second movie.
Oh, my Lord.
And then they blow up the whole thing, so there's no Hunger Games in the third one. It's just all war and drama.
Right.
And spread over 2 movies, so that was a lot. But you never really get this backstory that they're giving you in this. They don't really give you why there's 12 districts, why there's the capital, why there's a president that's in charge. They tell you we're punishing them for some war 1 billion years ago, 75 years ago. that we're still punishing them for, and, we're in charge and we're doing it. And their fashion is, like, out of control in those movies. Stanley Tucci's, like, one of my favorite characters from all of those movies, so getting to watch him, and then there's no, like, Hunger Games in the third and the fourth one, so then there's no reason to have Stanley in it. So he's only in the first two.
No, didn't he do an interview?
He looked very stressed.
But there's no, ha, 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 the Hunger Games, welcome. He doesn't get those moments with the big bright teeth. It's very sad moments.
I do need you to connect, because there is a connection to the prequel movie. Look at Ben.
What?
Yes.
There is the first, the new Hunger Games has an announcer.
Well, it's the 10th Hunger Games.
Jason Schwartzman?
Yeah, Jason Schwartzman.
He's doing a la the Stanley Tucci, very big performance, like big bright smile. He's actually doing magic. His hair's kind of getting in that coiffed era. So in this movie, you got like 60 plus years back of fashion, of the entire rebuilding of their cities, because there's like construction going on in the background. Why they're still doing it 10 years later, does that make sense? And who's doing it? And I didn't realize this, but as I, do a little research for the podcast, it's the same director for every single one of these.
Oh.
Francis Lawrence is crushing it with all these, and he does a bunch of other movies. But the book series based off of Susan Collins' books, this movie is still based off of those characters, because the prequel, telling what was happening in these districts or Panem prior to the current iteration of the movies, the backstory is about one of the characters from those first four. I wasn't expecting it, and if you've seen a trailer or anything for this, or imagine something 60 years earlier that is a character from this, you're gonna figure out it's Donald Sutherland's character.
Right, Snow, right?
Snow's backstory.
President Snow.
That's a great backstory, because I don't know why I would care about his backstory, given we cared about Katniss and that they're the capital and they're the worst. Mm-hmm. And I never bought any of the reasons why he was like, no, but I'm like a really mean, old, but nice guy. I'm like trying to help you and your sister and your family while also murdering people. It's like, it's a tough job being president. Getting his backstory, so there's some basis as to why he's corrupted by this entire world, and then further giving you maybe some reasons why Donald Sutherland's character was doing those things, but 60 years in and being the president for that, society. No, it doesn't really track that that's what that character was from this backstory, but having watched it, in that order, I brought all of his, current character, President Snow, into this and was really satisfied. They kind of gave him all of the effort and energy that they had in those first three with Katniss's character, that she cared about it and she was trying to save and change things, even if she didn't realize that she was going to become part of this whole political movement. Similarly, it feels like that. He's just trying to survive and live, and the way the society is designed, you're going to have to make these moves, and then, of course, they change the rules on you, and then they make him do stuff that he didn't feel like he was going to do, and then he kind of like shows up as a little bit more human than the other asshole characters, but ultimately it was just an enjoyable prequel in a universe that you already had. You could watch all of the previous four movies. They're set in the future of this. They do pay a little dividends, but it'd probably be better to watch them in the other order. And I can't imagine them with this acting caliber and this storyline. They're not going to do like 2 or 3 or 7 of these.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to remember, similar to the team being the same, it's because she made that other book. And so there isn't another Hunger Games book yet. So.
Just George R. Martin it. Get the movies done and then do the books.
And also, I just looked up, it made about $400 million, which I don't know at that level. And do you necessarily need... I have watched all the Hunger Games, but I am not going back to watch.
No, you don't need to go back and watch them.
Okay, got it.
Like
okay.
if someone on YouTube, whoever it is, just does a quick, these are the things that you need to know
probably
from
exists,
the previous 8 hours of movie watching, then you'd be good with that 20-minute primer.
Yeah.
But you could also not go into it, just experience this as is. It's going to tell you all the different parts. The main 3 members of the cast that I wanted to bring up were Rachel Zegler is playing like the Katniss, tribute that has to go into the, what the hell is it called?
The Hunger Games.
It's just called the Hunger Games. I was trying to make it more than that, and I kept going like, is it just the Hunger Games? Why am I losing that?
She's a tribute.
She's a tribute in the Hunger Games. It feels like they should have a much more exciting name for the district battles that they're doing. Anyways, Tom Blythe is the actual younger version of President Snow. He's not actually in charge of anything at this point. He's actually trying to like move up the ranks of society, which the wrench that gets thrown into that turns into he has to help this tribute from, District 12, and it's a mess the way they're doing it, the game design this time. But then it explains a lot when you see who's doing the game designing. You're like, oh, Viola Davis, you look scary as shit. What is happening? And then I started to like pay attention. I'm like, oh, these are major notes of the crazy fashion we see later and the flaming dresses that we see and the makeup from the entire face and the whole society that's designed this way. Oh, this is where it's going off the rails. These are the people in charge. Oh, this is actually pretty interesting that you've developed it this way. I don't mind it, but woo! Viola Davis is like wild looking. So as far as that, great entry point for the original movies, and you don't need to watch the original movies because it's actually a prequel, so it's beforehand. It's not like you're building up to something new. So I had another book-related movie, and it's called Turtles All the Way Down. On HBO Max. John Green, the author of the book and part of the writing team that worked on the screenplay. I'm following him on social media, and his brother Hank Green. They're hilarious. They've been doing the Vlog Brothers and plenty of other big things. So I'm like, oh, right. I meant to get back to those. Before I watch Turtles All the Way Down, I'm just going to go ahead and watch Fault in Our Stars. Where the hell is that? On Disney Plus. And Paper Towns, which is also on Max. So I was like, I watched all three of those. Those first two are from 2014 and 2015, or somewhere close to a decade ago.
Oh wow, really?
Has
it been that long?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This one's like brand new. All three of them are kind of not teen romance stories, but man, they are not the annoying teenager stories that we've been getting mostly, that you're really irritated with these teenagers and the choices they're making. So this one is actually another story in the same genre with, teenagers, but again, not annoying teenagers. They are still actually making interesting choices, and you kind of want to follow their story and you want them to be successful in all three of these movies. So I like what he's writing. He's not writing teenagers you don't want to see grow up or see a successful iteration of their story. And in the first two, it's more like, coming of age or like growing up or that kind of thing. That changed in the last decade. I wouldn't imagine why he's writing a different story. It's just another story of some teenagers, some young kids, but more contemporary and more attached to maybe what's happening in the youth culture and society and in the world in general today. This main character that we're following, played by Isabella Merced, she's playing a very young character who's got, a little bit of family trouble, but we don't really explore that too much because they're really just trying to say that this character's got a problem and that she's never really figured out how to address it. And it's like an OCD issue / it's like getting too inside your own head. And visually in filmmaking, it was like so entirely different from the first two because it was trying to give you a different story. It was trying to put you in a different place than just like, oh, we want you to get on board with this teenager and that one's the bad one. But it's going to work out in the end. Like those were a little bit more friendly flavor. This one was challenging, but in a good way, because you do want to get on board with that character's success and you're not sure how the story's going to be told because it's like, yeah, usually you don't solve this at 17. Like, this is a one-day answer. It's going to be like a long path, and they're not telling us this is like a long story. This is getting wrapped up in the 3 months of this story time. Where this ends up is there's a big issue between these two friends, and they have to have a good conversation about it, a real conversation. And the culmination to that, it really builds up to the point at which you are feeling the pressure and really wanting that to work out for the two of them. And even though they're teenagers and there isn't really that much at risk, it is a really like uplifting story because at the end of it, yeah, they haven't made it very far. They're all the way to 18 and maybe graduating high school. So there's a lot of life left. But you get this little sense of there are some pieces that were missing at the beginning of this puzzle that have found a place and that you didn't lose too much to get through this difficult story. So I'd recommend Turtles All the Way Down, but maybe like with a kid that's got a little bit of higher EQ, emotional intelligence. And ultimately, you'd have probably not introduced them to 10-year-old teenager movies anyways. But I'm going to go ahead and watch something with Cara Delevingne in it or Shailene Woodley. I'm watching anything that they're in, 10 years old, current. I'm happy with both of those.
All right.
You could go back and watch Isabella Merced in one of our favorites, Legends of the Hidden Temple movie, with our brother-in-law, Kirk Fogg.
That is right. Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah, she also played Dora the Explorer. She's had some large leaps in her career, so
Yeah.
good for her.
All right, cool. John, you're up.
Okay, sure. So I did go to the theater and I saw, it's not but it is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty fun. It's a little bit of a reset from those 3 recent ones, separate from the much older set of movies, because, unfortunately, some of those characters are not still around for us. So they also skipped forward in time many generations later.
Oh, so the original ape that we...
Caesar.
Yeah.
Caesar is not,
No,
but is it descendants?
we don't know. They explain it's good. They explain nothing, so we don't
okay.
know.
All right.
Okay.
But, it's still Planet of the Apes movie for sure. There's a interesting thing about that. Those 3, it didn't feel like you were on an exact, easy trajectory to define, this is where society's going. They're taking this step, then that step, then that step. But it did feel like you were sort of seeing the path. This feels like slightly a diversion or a side trip of here's what's going on with this little mini adventure. And you're like, oh, but the whole world? Who knows? All right. Sounds great.
But is it humans against apes? And are we still screwed in a dystopian type of vibe?
First of all, is it ever humans against apes? That's
In
always...
the human's mind, and that's why it gets to be problematic if we just could live peacefully together.
Look, yes, that's always the crux of the story is that, they're set off against each other and then finding some common ground, some specific set of characters do. So exactly the same in this one, yes, for sure.
Okay.
So it is on this timeline from these other recent ones where society has really broken down and this virus, as they're now explaining, did a terrible, number on humanity while raising up apes. And that is the society they're living on now, which is not fully explained. By the end, you have kind of a picture, but maybe not the whole picture, I don't think. So we'll see. Maybe they're setting things up and, more will be explained, or you'll see more specific instances that will really show you what's going on and oh, no, this ties back to something else. We'll see.
Are there supposed to be more? Is that why you were saying we'll see?
Do you not believe there will be more Planet of the Apes movies?
I don't know.
There's been a lot of them, Catherine.
Yes.
So probably.
Look, I need the follow-up to the Mark Wahlberg one, but seemingly we're not going to get
and the
it.
CGI is good, and
Yeah, these
all
last
the
3...
apes are talking and
Yeah.
walking barely, and not even on all fours anymore. They're
It's true. Look, it's a different style than, obviously the older ones and even the Mark one, which was kind of just a straight, not reboot, but whatever, just doing the first one again.
Planet of the Apes, yeah.
Yeah. So these are a little different, and the way they walk is different, and they haven't set them up to be because in that first, in the old one, those are basically human bodies with, ape faces.
Yeah.
Or, the different types of apes.
Not a lot of physicality of the ape is still there in those early
they've
early
evolved
ones.
past that or whatever. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. So they're still definitely well, no, those are just very smart and talkative apes.
So to clarify, we have not gotten into the original Planet of the Apes clothed ape era. They're still just furry, right?
Yeah, no.
All right.
We have not gotten there. It's
All right.
It's interesting because you almost felt as I avoided the trailer, not that I...
Oh, you avoided a trailer?
Oh.
For those of you that don't know, John avoids trailers.
Well, it's very hard not to set your expectations. And I even have a hard time just, I make it up in my head and then, oh, wait, it's not what I thought it was going to be. Just from the name, Kingdom, it's well, obviously we're going to be practically there. They're going to be where, no, we're not there yet. So, but, still enjoyable, I think, for all of that.
Do you want it to be there? It'd be the demise of humanity if it was the Kingdom of the Apes.
Okay, so that's the way you felt about the original series. It was the demise of humanity. There were humans in it, were there not?
Listen, when Charlton Heston saw the Statue of Liberty on the beach, yeah, it was the demise of humanity. It was pretty much we're done for.
That is one of the weird things. After seeing this movie, I was talking about it with someone, and the interesting thing you think about is well, wait a minute. Am I supposed to be identifying with these apes or the humans? And this movie, I think, tested it in a different way. Those last 3 movies kind of set you up where you were identifying with the apes quite well and kind of descending with the humanity. Because it's they're going to go away. We don't think they're going to stay. Sorry, Liz. They are.
We were jerks. Gary Oldman was not cool.
Sure.
He was very trigger happy in one of the last ones. Really could not chill out.
Right. So I feel like that was kind of, we were having this descending that we were less identifying with the humans. This one was a little interesting the way, because it was like, it felt slightly more equal. It felt you were unsure what each motivations. In the beginning was slightly clear for the apes. By the end, it was kind of unclear. You're like, well, where is their society going to go? And, are they against humans or not against humans? So it was a little tougher, I think, in this one.
Were there any actors that you could recognize just like voice-wise? Because I did see some actors doing press, and they talked a lot about going to, did they call it Ape School? Yeah.
Oh.
Ape School. And like really demonstrating like hunching over their shoulders and like the physicality of it. And one of them was even talking about how he decided where his voice would come from. And like, it was an interesting process. Who's in it?
There's a bunch of people, not so many that I recognized, and certainly not so many just from their voices. Obviously, we had a couple human characters, so they were there. But then of the apes, really there was one voice that you almost recognize it, and then when you see the person, you're like, oh, yes, that is you. Kevin Durand. Yeah, because he has an interesting delivery, which he uses to full effect as an ape. So
Is Andy Serkis in it?
He, I believe, was a special.
How can he not be?
But he's Caesar, and Caesar is not in it.
Well, I think if we remember, he was sort of, integral to the process in the kind of CGI character replacement that they went through.
The way the whole process happened, he was there from the beginning.
I believe he was credited as a special consultant.
Oh, okay, but not one of the main ape characters.
No, I don't think so. That was I was almost like, oh, well, why wouldn't they just throw it to him? But it's like, yeah, he's busy. Maybe he was like, I don't want to be some random bit part. I was Caesar.
Yeah.
I don't need to be a character. I can help you. But
Interesting. Okay.
as far as I know.
All right. Okay, and
Yes.
did you do a rewatch that you want to talk about?
You have to have both parts of that question.
Why? What?
Because I always do rewatches. But yes, I did rewatch, and it's tied to other things. But
Well, maybe I should frame it more like, of your many rewatches, what would you like to share with us?
sure. I mean, I was going to answer the question, but I can answer it as still. Yes. So I did rewatch The Equalizer.
The Equalizer.
Now, don't get it twisted. I didn't rewatch the 1980s television show. Oh. And I'm sorry I didn't rewatch.
I was like, I thought it was a TV show, and I was like,
Well,
wow.
Legitimately,
why?
that was a badass motorcycle on The Equalizer. And I think I maybe watched 1 or 2 episodes with Dad.
And is there a new Equalizer starring?
Queen Latifah. Yes. So I'm not referring to that either. I'm sorry.
Does she have a motorcycle? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I really don't know.
She does.
I'm referring to Denzel Washington.
Okay, that's what I figured. That's what I
Oh,
figured.
that was good.
I mean, I think, look, Antoine Fuqua, I mean, they've done Training Day, they've done other things. I mean, this is practically John Wick level. I mean, this is a perfect action movie. And the other two are great, but I haven't rewatched those recently. But that first one is pretty much perfect, I think.
So I have a question.
You're not allowed to have any questions.
Yes, go. What's your question?
So is this the one where he drops off the girl? He's like driving a cab or whatever, and he takes the girl up to the
No.
room? No?
That is number 2.
That's number 2. How many did he do?
Ow.
He's only done
No.
3. He's only done 3. The third one is in our same town. Ripley was in Trevino or whatever. It's in that Italian town that's on that
Really?
hillside.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And seeing it in color is also nice. But no, this is the first one with Martin Kasakis and Chloe Grace Moretz.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Apparently, I haven't watched any of them, but I have seen that one scene from the second one.
That's strange, but okay. Sounds good for you.
I don't know how
I think Eric would like it. Go back. 2014. It's a decade
I bet you
old.
he would.
But I think it stands up. I think he'd like it.
I think he's seen it already.
Yeah, he probably has.
Obviously, I think it's worth rewatching anytime.
Is this a frequent rewatch?
It's tough. You just got to do the action movie circuit, when it's what's available, what you haven't watched in a week, So, yeah, this is like maybe a yearly or, you can do it every 6 months easy.
Oh, you could do it every 6 months.
Sure.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's freaking perfect. What's the matter with you?
Nothing.
Okay,
I
then.
will get right on it. Where did you say it is?
I didn't. But also, David Harbour's in it, so
Oh.
come on.
That must be one of his more earlier movie roles. I mean, he's been a working actor around for a while, but
No, it was not the Stranger Things star effect. But on the other hand, it was not a bit part. He has a pretty strong part. He does such a good job as like a kind of a corrupt detective who's then, put to work by our man Denzel. So he does a great job at that, I thought.
Yeah, I should probably get on it and watch it.
No,
What?
you-
I mean, I should. I'm not saying I will.
I'm intrigued.
But
you know
should,
what?
though.
I'm 90% sure I did already see it, but I need to go back and be like, oh, yes.
You might have to do a rewatch.
I'd be open to it. I would put Ethan in front of it because there's no
yeah, I
way
think
he's
so.
seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, not that he hasn't seen this in other ways. Certainly quite violent and graphic, but, have fun. I would quote you earlier, Catherine, anyone but you. I'm not, you don't need to, why would you watch this? But it's great.
It's not for you. It's not for you. It's not for you.
I mean, it is.
It's
for me.
not for you.
But there's so
It's
much
for
that I'm trying to
anyone
watch.
but you.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. This is not where your focus should be.
I mean, that's true. I mean, that's the thing. I probably would like it, but I'm trying to watch so many other things. I don't know when I would watch it. That's the main
Exactly.
thing.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's just do a roundabout recap of what everybody talked about. So I talked about Anyone But You on Netflix, also Bridgerton season 3 on Netflix, and Dark Matter on Apple TV Plus.
I watched Bodkin and A Man in Full on Netflix, along with Black Twitter, A People's History on Hulu.
And I watched The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes on Starz, and Turtles All the Way Down on Max.
I went to the theater and saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, as well as rewatched The Equalizer from 2014 on Netflix.
All right, great. Okay, so that's it for this episode. So thank you for joining. Oh, what?
episode 75.
Oh, this is episode
The
75.
Quarter Quell.
The quarter quell of what we are watching. You've made it, people. You've made it this far.
This episode of What We're Watching Games.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
okay, perfect. I mean, great. So you can follow us on all of our social media, and that's at Podcast Watching, and you can watch all 75 episodes.
How is that possible?
I mean, whatever, on YouTube, and that is at the Knack Entertainment YouTube channel. So thank you for joining us on What We're Watching.